Hi, I'm Wes. Thanks for joining us again on Building Roots podcast with TreeNewal. I'm joined today by Emmett Munich from Arborist, and we're here to talk about paclobutrazol, which is a growth regulator. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, growth regulators, this is kind of it's not exactly a brand new thing in our industry, but most people still aren't aware of them and what they are and what they do. So would you mind telling us a little about kind of how they help us in plant management?
You don't know what kind of black box you just opened there, Wes. So growth regulators, they're fascinating. So my career has been dedicated to plant healthcare. And so I tell people about a plant healthcare toolbox, and most people think, when they think plant healthcare, PHC, they immediately jump into insect and disease control. Well, there's a lot more to it than that. And so what's interesting about paclobutrazol is everything else that's in the PHC toolbox kind of affects the environment of the tree, right? So if you're doing some sort of a root fertilization or soil building program, you're affecting the root environment. Or if you're doing a disease control or an insect control application, you're affecting what's outside of the tree. Well, what paclobutrazol does is it affects the inside of the tree, the physiology, things that most people don't consider. Everything with plant material is controlled by a balance of hormones and the regulation of those hormones. And so paclobutrazol is a really fascinating product, how it works. It was introduced, actually the early work on that product, it is a triazole compound, so paclobutrazol, very similar to what people may be familiar with for oak wilt treatments, which would be propiconazole. All right, so ZOL is the suffix there. And so it was researched, it's in that triazole family, and so it was being researched as a disease control product. And what they found is it was not very effective at controlling diseases, but also it was affecting the growth of the plants, and they were getting all sorts of distortion and phytotoxicity from this compound. Well then, so they were gonna throw the baby out with the bathwater, but they kind of stopped and said, well, hey, maybe we can use this for something else. And so paclobutrazol for trees is applied to the soil. There's also formulations that can be applied to shrubs to help manage shrub growth, which is pretty awesome. And I've been working a lot with like commercial landscape companies in that route, just for managing growth of shrubs like hollies, ligustrums, abelia, wax myrtle, things like that are hedgerow shrubs.
Yeah, well, when they're doing lots of shrub pruning multiple times per year, that's a big expenditure on labor, and it can help them out a lot by reducing that labor expense.
Yes, that's the angle that I'm coming in with. And so that's pretty cool. But as it pertains to trees, so it's going to be applied to the soil. It's going to be root absorbed. Tree picks it up and it's going to transport this active ingredient, paclobutrazol, to the meristem. So that's the actively growing regions of the tree. And what this product does is it inhibits the growth hormone gibberellic acid. And so that is a hormone that is responsible for cell elongation. So what you see is, let's take a Shumard oak, for example. Annually, how much growth would you expect a Shumard to put on in a year?
Nice, healthy, vigorous, young tree, and 8+ inches.
Yeah, so let's say a foot of growth.
Yeah.
So you got a foot of growth. If that same tree had been treated with paclobutrazol, you would see about 4 inches of growth. So it's going to reduce that growth by about 66%. All right. It's still putting on the same number of leaves. It's just the internodal growth that's been shortened. So that's the distance of that stem between each leaf. All right.
So it makes the tree look fuller.
Right. So you're going to
get leggy.
Right. So you're going to get a more compact growth. The leaf size is going to be a bit smaller, and you're going to see an enhancement of chlorophyll production. So basically your leaf is smaller, so you have a smaller leaf area, but the same amount of chlorophyll in that leaf. And so you're going to get a darker, denser green looking leaf.
So you have less leaf surface area, but you get more energy production per unit of leaf area surface. So you're getting the same energy, if not more.
If not more. And so why would people want to use this? So the line clearance industry uses an absolute ton of this stuff because it's going to reduce their pruning intervals, or lengthen their pruning intervals is what I'm trying to say, reduce their pruning trips.
And save them a lot of labor.
Right. And so, well, and it's good for the homeowners because if they're doing line clearance in your backyard, then they can treat with this growth regulator. They're not going to be back the next year or the fall, it's going to last. I should say on trees, it persists for a pretty long time. It depends on how long the growing season is. So in this area, I tell people 2 to 3 years. As we move north and the growing season is shortened, like if you get up into Canada, it may last 4 or 5 years because your growing season is so short. And so the line clearance, that's a good use for it, just for controlling growth. I talk to a lot of arborists about it for the health benefits that we see from using this product.
You already touched on some of those. So you mentioned a more compact canopy. You mentioned more chlorophyll in the leaves. Also, there are benefits to the root system.
There are. And so drought management is another use that I talk to people about it. And it's kind of a long-term approach for drought management because you get, the easiest way to explain this is we are, as a tree has pathways that it's put its energy, if you will, basically carbohydrates, right? So trees are making their own food in the leaves in the form of sugars, and they have pathways that they're going to put this stuff into different buckets, right? So trees naturally is growth. That's their number one sink for energy allocation. And so trees out in the woods, what are they trying to do? They're trying to outgrow their neighboring trees and try to get to the sun. And so what we're doing in the urban environment, that type of growth is not necessarily wanted or needed, right? We're trying to have a healthy looking tree. And so when we down-regulate that, well, the tree is still producing all of this energy, and it has these other sinks that it has to put them into. And so you have root development, defense compounds, carbohydrate storage, and reproductive structures as all different buckets that it can put this energy into. And so we down-regulate the growth, up-regulate these other things. And so with drought management, you get an enhancement of fibrous root growth, but then you also get a more water-efficient tree because of another hormone called abscisic acid. That's what's involved in fruit set as well as stomatal regulation. And so basically these trees become more sensitive to drought. And so when they sense the drought, they're able to shut their stomates and become more efficient in managing their water.
So when you say more sensitive, you mean they're able to perceive it and react to it better,
yes,
not that they suffer from it more.
Correct. And so because they have more abscisic acid, the response is faster of the stomatal regulation.
Right. So we definitely have a lot of secondary benefits from this product, right? They're not. Sometimes that can be our main objective, and we should identify what our objective is with the product before we apply it.
Correct. And so stress management, another big opportunity that I talk to folks about is construction. So we're in DFW, lots of construction going on all the time around trees. If you can, and this is the rarity, is if you can treat with paclobutrazol prior to a construction project happening near a tree, it is super beneficial.
Absolutely. I recommend that to customers a lot. I get called in for consultations. I want to build a house on this lot, but I love these trees. What are some of the things that I can do to help protect these trees? And that's definitely an important component to that management plan. Right.
And so pre-construction is great. Post-construction is still very helpful. The challenge is it's very situational. Post-construction could mean 3 years from now, and when that tree is on death's doorstep. That's what I caution people with, is it is not a 911 product.
Right.
If the tree is about to die, this is probably not going to save it. This is more of it's kind of a long game, because what it's doing by altering the physiology of the tree, and what I think in that type of situation, the key component of why this is helpful is the upregulation of carbohydrate storage. Right.
That's very important for plant health.
You're putting more gas in the reserve tank of the tree. And so what we see over this 3-year period of that tree being regulated, it's only putting on that 4 inches of growth, so it's more compact. Well, then it's storing so much more energy. And so when that growth regulator does wear off or it is metabolized out, this tree will just come out with a pretty massive amount of growth. I shouldn't say massive, a big growth response. And it's not because it's been regulated, so it's making up for lost time. It's more because it's been storing lots of energy, and so it has this big reserve of energy that it pushes out.
But there aren't any negative side effects health-wise. If someone has a tree and they decide to growth regulate it, and 3 years later they decide they don't want to do that again, there aren't any negative consequences for the tree. You just lose the benefit of the growth regulation.
Right, and that tree, after that wears off, that tree is going to look better. It is going to be healthier. I've been treating, so chlorosis is a common problem around here, a nutrient deficiency on our hybrid oaks and maples and things like that. I've been playing around with a tree in my town that I noticed was chlorotic. It's in a parking lot island. It gets no irrigation, full sun exposure. It's like the worst place for a tree. I treated it with paclobutrazol back in the fall of 2018. I haven't done anything else to it since, and the tree is still looking awesome. Like I noticed it last year was, actually 2 years ago, was breaking through the regulation. And I'm like, I just want to see what this tree does, see how it looks. And the tree now is still doing great. I haven't treated that tree with anything since 5 years ago.
Right. So this product, if you're treating on a tree that has restricted root zone, you have to reduce the amount that you use, or you could overregulate the tree.
It's more about biomass, the size of the canopy. So for instance, on the line clearance trees, if they come in and they remove half the canopy for line clearance, that's when you're going to want to dial that rate back. So with this product and with other plant healthcare products, we're basing it off the DBH, the diameter at breast height, and that's an estimate of biomass. How large is this organism?
Not always super accurate.
No, it's not. And in fact, you could measure a tree and I could measure a tree, and we might come up with different measurements,
right?
Depending on the situation, if it was a multi-trunk or something like that. And so that's where an arborist or an applicator might need to put on their thinking cap.
Right.
And so I believe this is one of the most underutilized tool in the toolbox. However, I think what happened is when this product was released, it's been out for, I think since the 80s was when they came out with it. The rates were not dialed in. And so you have different sensitivities based on species as well. Maples are super sensitive to it. Oaks respond beautifully to it.
Elms are relatively sensitive.
Yeah, cedar elms are relatively sensitive. But I think where that comes in is maybe the rates that were tested were on American elm, which is a much larger biomass compared to a cedar elm. Is going to have, if you have an American elm and a cedar elm that are the same DBH, their canopy sizes are not going to correlate. That American elm is going to have a lot more wood and a lot more leaves up there.
And I think you see the same thing on lace bark elm, because the leaf size is so much smaller, and they just generally are more open canopy tree than an American elm. Even with a similar DBH, I think you have less biomass, and so they're easier to overregulate.
Right, and so you got to be careful on that. And I encourage people, if they're using our product, if you have a question on this, please reach out to me, call me, text me, whatever, so that we make sure you apply the correct rate. And I always tell people, err on the side of caution. Err on the side of caution, because if you overregulate a deciduous tree, it's going to be in that overregulated state for a while. And what that means is the tree is going to have much smaller leaves, smaller than maybe is desirable. I have seen some cedar elms that are overregulated, and their leaves are pretty small, maybe like the size of a fingernail, as opposed to being, that's probably half the size of what they're supposed to be, or maybe a third of the size.
Yes, I agree. You absolutely have to be careful with your dosage, and you have to be able to interpret each individual application, what is going to be the appropriate reduction to the labeled rate based on what I'm seeing here with this individual tree.
Yes.
Another big benefit of this tree is the actual growth regulation.
Yes.
I run into all kinds of scenarios where we have large trees in small spaces. Lots of conflicts with the house or the street, the sidewalk, the landscaping, the turf. Our trees, they like a lot of space when you have large species like live oak, for example. A lot of conflicts with trees that have that kind of prostrate growth habit and they want to sprawl out and they're in a small space. My customers often are trimming these trees back away from their house or their pool every year. And this is a product that can really cut down not only on the hassle, but on the cost and as well on the mess. I've removed many, many trees because people are just exhausted from having to clean up the pool or their patio with the mess that it makes. And one of the benefits of this product is that we can reduce that growth rate so that they're not at least having to do this every year. Maybe it's every third year or every fourth year.
Right.
That's one of the big benefits from it. One of the other benefits from it that maybe people realize a little less commonly is that it can help keep a very large tree a more manageable size in the space that it's in for a longer period of time. You get a lot of these little patio homes and it's got a live oak in the backyard, 6 feet from the house and 5 feet from the back fence. And that tree just doesn't have much space. And you and I both know that there's nothing that we can do long term. That tree is going to outgrow its usefulness in that space, and the conflicts are going to be so great that it's just going to have to get removed.
Right.
This is an opportunity to kick that can down the road a long ways and help keep that tree useful in that space.
It is, especially if someone is living there and, hey, we're only going to be here for 5 years or 3 years or whatever, 1 year, whatever it may be. That might be an opportunity. If it's somebody that's going to be there, like, hey, we are retiring here, this is our home, they might be better off, hey, let's get a smaller tree in this spot than something that's going to be large. But yeah, right tree, right location, that's always an important consideration. Yeah,
this can actually help us a little bit because landscapers, as we know, can't always be relied on for right plant, right space. So this is one of those tools that we can use to kind of help ameliorate some of those effects.
Another use that I visit with people about is safety. Safety. So we've got tree form hollies that are often, people are on ladders with hedge trimmers shaping these things. I can think of a few houses in my neighborhood where I've seen the homeowner doing this.
Well, there's a reason why in arboriculture we don't usually employ ladders as part of our best management practices.
So on these large tree form shrubs, you can use this growth regulator and it's going to hold their growth a lot tighter for probably a year or more. On these evergreens, they're going to burn through, they're going to metabolize that product more quickly than a deciduous tree does. Again, it has to go with the length of the growing season and how long that plant is working on this compound. But you could probably get 12 to 18 months of growth regulation on a tree form holly, so to speak.
And that has a lot of benefits for the people maintaining it, as well as the people who look out their kitchen window and see it every day, and they don't like seeing those crazy long shoots of wild hairs sticking way out. So not only is it going to help with the maintenance, but the plant's going to look better. You get a lot of these secondary benefits really show up on these evergreen plants.
And I've even seen some live oaks that have been managed that way, where they've, it makes me cringe on the inside a little bit, but some people do it. They shape their live oaks, and that's happening every year. They're shearing this tree back, and so if you can implement a growth regulator there, that's going to reduce how much labor and input you're putting in to maintain that shape.
Right. So are there any risks with applying the product? What could happen if there's grass or other shrubs or other plants around?
So this is a non-discriminatory growth regulator. And paclobutrazol is a compound that's used in all sorts of industries that you would not even think of. So paclobutrazol is used in golf course and turf grass management. What are the plants you see at Christmas time? The red and green.
Poinsettias.
Poinsettias. The reason they look the way they do, is they're treated with growth regulator. They're treated with a paclobutrazol product. That's why they are so vibrant in color and tight. And so what I'm getting at is, yes, if you apply a tree rate of paclobutrazol to the soil and there are other plants nearby that pick it up, they will be regulated, often over-regulated. Cool season grasses especially, we see issues with as we move into the Midwest of the United States. Fescue lawns are what we normally have, and it will kill the grass basically. It's too high of a dose for turf.
So how close does the plant have to be for a normal application?
So following the label, this product can be applied either as a soil drench or as a soil injection. And so the soil drench method is pretty common, where you will basically dig out what I call a trench or a moat around, adjacent to the tree. It's at the root flare. And you're just pouring that product at the root flare of the tree, keeping as close to the tree as possible. And then there's also tools out there that can be used to apply metered doses into the ground as a soil injection. With that, I think the soil probe is probably going 8 to 10 inches into the ground.
So if you've got a azalea bush that's growing 3 feet away from your red oak that's been treated with paclobutrazol, do we have to worry that that plant is going to be overregulated?
Yeah. Yes.
As long as those roots are extending into that soil that's been treated with
right.
it, you
but
have
also,
the potential.
So, yeah, and then also with soil moisture, rainfall, irrigation, that product can move in the soil. It's not going to stay. It doesn't move as much as other stuff in the soil, but it can move.
Yes, under heavy rainfall.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have seen it be applied on a slope, and having been washed down and have almost this kind of pyramidal shape, growth inhibition on St. Augustine grass.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful with it. Is there anything that you can do to kind of help reduce those risks?
You don't want to apply it into saturated soils. Removing that plant material, basically. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm thinking of stuff like mondo grass or monkey grass, things like that. Mm-hmm. So just kind of depends, you know. If you're doing things for the health of the tree, it might be good to have those plants taken out of there anyways. But yeah, that's probably the main risk with using this product.
Okay, so what types of trees and plants respond best to it?
I think red oaks respond most oaks, but red oaks especially respond beautifully to this product. Mm-hmm. Very predictable results and greatly improves their health.
I've had a lot of luck with live oaks as well. Mm-hmm. That's one of our species that creates a lot of conflict on the property, eating up all the horizontal space. And I've had very good results with paclobutrazol on not only improving the health and appearance of the tree, but just those additional conflicts with the property. So is there anything that we need to do when we're applying it to ensure that it's going to be effective? I think one thing is that the dosing is very specific.
Yeah, the dosing is very specific. Double check your rate categories and your dosing and mixing. And, you know, when in doubt, call for help.
Make sure that you're identifying your species correctly.
Yes. So timing of this application, it can be applied anytime the soil is not frozen, which our ground does not freeze here. And so if you apply this in the fall, winter, or early spring, you will see the growth inhibition the next spring. If you apply during the summer months, you're not going to see the growth inhibition until the following spring. And so kind of an idea that I've had on this is if you're concerned about over-regulating a tree, applying this product in the summer months may reduce your risk of over-regulation because it allows the tree to metabolize for a growing season before you see the growth inhibition effects of the product.
Okay. So do you have any other specific advice that you give to arborists that are using growth regulators or specifically to homeowners on anything else that they need to know about the product before using it?
No, just be aware that it's going to affect other stuff around the tree. Another common question I get is, will this reduce fruit production? And the answer is no.
Does it increase fruit
It
production
does.
in all cases?
Yes. So like I said, one of those buckets that it's putting energy into is reproductive structures. And so actually as a spray application on flowering shrubs, like I have some pictures of azaleas that look amazing. Things like a tight, compact ball of flowers. And so it's not going to reduce acorns. It may increase your acorns. So that's something to consider as well.
Okay. Well, it sounds like a pretty neat product. I've had a lot of benefits from using it, both for plant health reasons and for growth reduction reasons. As we found out, it really does work. I have a lot of happy customers having used this product. I know it has uses in the utility industry and as well as turf and shrub management. So it's really a versatile product that is a great tool in our toolbox.
Absolutely.
Yep. Well, thanks for joining us here on another episode of Building Roots with TreeNewal. I appreciate you being here, Emmett. I had a good time talking about this. We should do it again.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you.